Hello, everybody. Good evening. Very happy to be here with you. I've been away for a while, been another continent. It's so good to be back. I love the other continent, but for some reason, I like this one better. Very good. Who has been here before? Or better asking, who is coming for the first time? Nobody. Okay, this is gonna make my life so much easier. The Spirit Center, in a day like this, in a time of prayer like we just heard, can work just as a temple. The temple of the Spirit, right? Where we reconcile our energies and connect and reconnect to God. But if you come here on Tuesdays or maybe even Fridays, you will see the Spirit Center is a school. We have many classes, many courses. Can be, of course, our home, our spiritual home, as we have the opportunity to meet those who really can be considered a spiritual family. The corporeal bonds are not necessarily synonymous of spiritual bonds. So it's so good to meet people that are actually go beyond friendship. You truly identify yourself with them in spirit. It's like you know that person for many, many years, many lifetimes. But the Spirit Center can also be a hospital, can be an emergency room, can be an intensive care. And that's what we're going to be speaking tonight. The side of the Spirit Center that works as a hospital. We have different types of therapy in the Spirit Center. One of them is very hands-on. It has a direct impact in our well-being. We are talking about the passes, and we know the passes as laying on hands, laying hands upon people, are actually a practice by many other philosophies and religions. But for us, it's actually a therapy. That's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. Of course, it's worth remembering, it's worth to be reminded that we are so much more than what meets the eye, right? We have so much more behind the physical body, our appearance. We actually are a living spirit in a living body. This is a question that we should consider to question ourselves, to ask ourselves from time to time. We all seek to be physical, healthy, well, and those even go further. They seek to be physically fit. The well-being of our soul, our beings, will go much more beyond that. So it's worth also to ask if we are spiritually fit. And if we are not well, if you're going through a phase that we can very much describe as a roller coaster, and we are getting very close to a burnout, emotional burnout, physical burnout, spiritual burnout, we can find help in the passes. So it's important for us to be in sync with ourselves. And of course, our focus here is not into the part of the sync that is looking inside, that our friend Valdo is helping us to reconnect in the very last Thursday of the month, we have this new program that try to put together notions of spiritism and meditation. So every last Thursday of the month, with exception of months that have 5 weeks, every fourth Thursday we will have this opportunity to sync with our inner selves. But the reason I put this here is not only to remind us of this program, but mostly to remind us that we are so much more than our spiritual body. Or better saying, our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body. Actually, we could say that we are kind of a conjunction, an intersection of a spirit, of a physical body, and a spiritual body. In Spiritism, we will say that here you have your spirit, beautiful and bright. Here you have your physical body, hopefully really fit. And here you have your spiritual body, that if we not in this world, if we are only in the spirit world, we will have our spirit, which is our essence, and our spiritual body. But as we are right now, in this very world, incarnated, we have a physical body, we have our essence that goes wherever we go, which is our spirit. And in between, if I could say that, in between, we have a physical body. I put here the idea of an imprint. Did I say that? Thank you. In between, we have the spiritual body. Thank you so much. We have we call it a perispirit. In a technical terms, in terms of spiritism. I like to use the image, the icon, as a representation of the spiritual body as an imprint, because actually that's exactly what it is. Everything we are, in essence, can be imprint in a metaphoric way, of course. It can be our spiritual body is a reflection of what we truly are. Our emotions, our way of seeing life, the past lives, everything is imprinted in this spiritual body. So the spiritual body becomes like a blueprint of the physical body. So when we see illness manifesting in our physical body, actually the disease, the dis-ease, the lack of peace, the lack of harmony, the lack of balance is in the spiritual body. And as we incarnate, as we live this life, it will manifest eventually, sooner or later. And of course, I'm not talking about a cold, right, that you catch in a plane because somebody else is sneezing next to you. I'm not talking about these small little illnesses that we get just because we live in a material world. I'm talking about the serious stuff. So, the passes will work in the spiritual body, where everything is. Everything starts, of course, in the spirit, but as it's reflected in the spiritual body, the passes has the goal of affect and heal the spiritual body, but is a combination of different elements to bring up this healing. One of them is what we do in this very room here after the lecture. We have a pass giver transmitting energy to our chakras. We will talk a little bit about that. And will help us to rebalance, restore, to cleanse our chakras, our centers of energy, activate. Sometimes we are so tense, so stressed out, so full of everything that is not really good for us, that our chakras, which would be really spinning, should be spinning really fast, are so sluggish, because it's full of energy that are truly harmful to us. We can absorb this energy from the outside, from going to a place that is truly polluted spiritually, the spiritual atmosphere of the place contaminate us literally, or just sitting next to somebody who's not well, and at that day you're not really well, so you end up absorbing the lack of wellness of that person next to you. And of course, most of the time, our spiritual body is out of balance because of our lifestyle. And I'm talking about the life of the mind, the life of the body, and your style, the way you live your life. So that's what we're going to be seeing here today. What passes are? What is the purpose of dispensing passes? And let's see if it is helpful. So here we'll talk about the definition, some facts, the purpose. We even talk about the passes in the Bible, because most of us have in the Western world, we do have a Christian upbringing. So we'll talk a little bit about the passes in the Bible too. We'll talk about the pass giver, the types of passes, and what is there to us to help us in the process of having the passage becoming truly effective. But from this information here, I'd like to bring this here. Actually, the energy of the passes is something that is related to magnetism. And magnetism is a science. I'm not talking about magnetism between two poles of attraction, north and south, positive and negative. I'm not talking about this type of magnetism. We're talking about animal magnetism that was studied by Mesmer in the 19th century. And Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, was a magnetizer as well. He used to dispense the energy of the passes. And the sessions of magnetism at that time was not cheap. And those interested in become magnetizers were usually people of high intellectual standards, truly people who were interested in science. And we are talking about even those who were considered nobles at the time, barons and contes and all kinds of high sphere people in society. There are several stories, famous stories about the dispensation of magnetism. And people usually, many magnetizers did it free, but did it for free. But lots of them truly asked for lots of money too, as was considered a true medical treatment. So there is this story of Josephine Bonaparte, who needed more than anything to give children to Napoleon, because Napoleon and Josephine was like one of the very famous couples in the history of the world. Love couples, very intense relationship. And Napoleon did love Josephine, but she had 2 children. But after, there are many theories why she could not have more children with Napoleon. And it's not because Napoleon could not have children, because he had many children with other women, with his lovers. But Josephine was put in the Bastille and it was in the, the next in line to be cut, to have her head cut. And we are talking about the reign of terror. And these months that she spent in prison, this very famous prison of Bastille, they say one of the theories that this affected her so much that she became sterile. Other people say that it was because she fell out of a big staircase. But anyway, she could not have children. And she requested the help of famous magnetizers of her time to try to do something and have children. So you're talking about the nobles and people who truly have money to pay for these sessions. Allan Kardec was very much interested in magnetism, and he performed as a magnetizer for many years. And he did say in the Spirit's book that magnetism as a science and the side of Spiritism as a science, because Spiritism has different sides, has a spiritual side, has a philosophical side, and has a scientific side. So in terms of the scientific side of Spiritism, Kardec says in the Spirit's book, allow me to read with you, Spiritism and magnetism give us the key to phenomena that ignorance has explained by exaggerated fables. The enlightened knowledge of these two sciences, which actually are one, show the reality of things in their true cause, which is the best protection against superstition and misconception. This is on the item 555 in the Spirit's book, by the way. Kardec goes on saying, magnetism shows what is possible and what is impossible, what is written in natural law and what is simply an outrageous belief. So why am I bringing this point here? To say that what we do in that very room has its base in the foundation in science. It's not a ritual. And we emphasize that matter. Passes is not a spiritist ritual. If you go to I like to that's my teacher side of me. I like to bring definitions from the dictionary. And if you go to the dictionary, the definition of pass is the moving of hands over or along something. So that's why we call it passes, because we move the hands along the body of the person without touching, by the way. And pass, of course, it can be meant as a medium of exchange. And there is an exchange of energy when we are receiving the passes in. So there are three types of passes. We call the magnetic, the spiritual, and the combined type of passes, meaning the magnetic, the source of the energy is me as a pass giver. Will be you when you study and become a pass giver. Is the pass giver himself, is the medium himself or self. A spiritual pass is that we receive here, in this very room here. As we listen to the lecture, to the talks, our attention are into more spiritual things of a different quality, and we are trying to instruct ourselves. As we are attend to the we have our attention into the lecture, our mentors are already helping us, giving us passes of realignment, of better energy. So when we get to that room, we are kind of prepared to receive the real passes. Can the spiritual passes per se be the real passes? Yes, but we all gotta be connected in prayer and gotta be a special moment for that. But as we are here, the mentors just pass by each one of us, giving us passes of well-being and the preparedness to the passes themselves over there. And of course, the combines are, most of the passes actually are combined, meaning that when the pass giver is giving you the passes, he gives his energy to you, his vital energy, his bioenergy, the energy of his material body. Mesmer would call it the animal magnetism. Animal meaning contrary to spirit magnetism. And the spirits are also working through the medium, through the pass giver, and also mixing and dispensing that energy to help us to be rebalanced. So out there it's called, passes are known, are laying on of hands. I can add that is basically a donation of energies. Donations of bioenergies, as just explained, comes from the pass giver himself, herself. A donation of spiritual energies, as I just mentioned, too. And we could compare it to like a blood transfusion from people who has more and healthier energy and give to somebody who needs better energy, healthier energy. Good blood and no blood. You receive blood in a transfusion in a hospital. So we could compare, use a metaphor, of course, that we could say that a pass is truly a transfusion of spiritual energies as well. And like we just mentioned, can be a type, could be considered a type of magnetic healing, meaning more physical, more coming truly from a bioenergy of the medium, from the medium energy himself or herself, or a spiritual energy. We like to say and emphasize, like I just mentioned, passes are not a ritual. So we are not there like making boom, 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 lo, lo, lo. We are not doing this because somebody told us, do this, do that. None. There is a science behind those movements. There is a technique behind those movements. And this technique evolves as our knowledge becomes more enlightened. I like to say that surgery in the Middle Ages is very different from surgery today. So the way people used to perform the passes in the past, like we hear in the Gospels, people just laying hands on people, right? The apostles laying hands on other people, on the sick people. That's all you hear in the Gospels. The people are laying hands. But this is only a very primitive and simple technique where the mentors, the spiritual doctors, do everything else. Now, if you were a spirit, if you were a mentor yourself, would you rather work with a pass giver who knows more about the mechanisms of magnetism, of the mechanisms of the chakras, somebody who has more knowledge about the spiritual body, or somebody who doesn't know anything, but has a lot of love in his heart? Of course, if you're a mentor, You would rather work with somebody who has a lot of love in his heart, in her heart, and also knowledge. So that's why here in our center, we just do not just lay hands, impose hands on people's head. We know more. We have studied more. We have studied techniques from the magnetism in the time of Kardec. We have studied techniques brought by the spirit mentors currently from very famous mediums such as Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, who show us these specific techniques that will give the person who is receiving the passes these specific results. So here in our center, passes are truly a huge deal. Our pass givers truly study the matter. So, you receiving better passes? I think so. But anyway, practice the passes. The practice is based on the laws of magnetism and the knowledge of the interaction between the spiritual and the physical worlds. There is a book, one of the books, the basic books of what we call the codification, the foundation of Spiritism, is called Genesis. The chapter 14 talks about fluids. Fluids is a funny word to be translated from the French into English, from the Portuguese into English, because fluid for us means body fluids. But actually fluids, when it's referred in spiritualistic literature, truly refers to energy. And this chapter 14 is a spectacular chapter talking about the interaction of the spirit and the material world, and the dispensation and how energy works and affects the body and the spirit. And the passages are not a modern concept. Like I mentioned in the beginning, but I would say that it's very interesting to know that, look at this picture here. This is the Pharaoh Ramses II. It seems like he's dispensing the passes here. It's an old technique, he's just imposing the hands. He didn't learn with us, with Mesmer. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so you see here in the Egyptians, and you hear the Greeks, and you hear the Jewish. This is the time of Solomon, the King Solomon, talking about the dispensing of the laying of hands. And I think one of the most interesting things is here in the medieval times. Because here we have Charles II of England. There was a session, a specific session called the Gift of Healing, that the king was considered anointed, right? He was the chosen of God to govern a whole country. So there was a session, and many kings at that time would do the same. They would just dispense passes, the healing through the king's hands. Isn't that interesting? Oh my gosh, I love research. But anyways, the Chinese and is throughout the history of civilization. So are you with me? Are you listening? You paying attention? You think this is interesting? I think you're interested, so I'm going to go on. I'm motivated. But anyway, so the passage in the Bible, I promise, another 10 minutes, and I'll leave you in peace for the passage. Can you take 10 more minutes? All right, thank you. I thought so. I beg your pardon? Yeah, sure.
What about the Christians with touching the people when they're sick and they heal them?
Okay.
What about that? Like that, what they do?
You talking about Christians nowadays or the early Christians?
They still practice that now.
Yes, they do. Yes, absolutely. Well, they do use energies and techniques they do not know. They just say it is the Holy Spirit. But through the love of their hearts, through the faith, they are just dispensing energy. and through the face of the other person, if the person is in time of being healed, because there is this aspect of healing. So many people go to these sessions, even in the times of Jesus, right? So many people go there to be healed, and so many of them were not. Why some are healed and some are not? This is a good question, isn't it? It's another lecture. I cannot go on now, but I promise I will bring that to you. Why some people, I'm going to leave the question in the air. Why some people heal? Why some people just seem like the time of the expiation is gone, and some go on suffering their whole life? So I will promise that I will prepare something to you. But to answer your question specifically, they are just giving passes without knowing, right? And we will see this in the Bible. There are many, many examples of healing in the Bible. And I will just, they call in the Bible, the term they use in the Bible is better saying, is the laying on of hands. And I just brought some excerpts here for you. But you see the term laying of hands all the time. And Paul, in the second epistle to Timothy, Acts, Paul is speaking to the Hebrews, Timothy again, Matthews, Marcus. There are many examples. And I like this one here that says, charge you before God and the Lord Jesus Christ and the elect angels, that you observe these things without prejudice, doing nothing with partiality. Do not lay hands on anyone hastily, meaning all of a sudden, prepare yourself to give passes. That's what Paul is saying to Timothy here, right? Anyways, there are many examples I won't be able to read with you, but you can take a picture and check it yourself at home. I just want to mention that passes were mentioned in the Bible many, many, many times. Jesus healed the sick through the laying of hands many times. But it was not the only way Jesus healed. Sometimes he just got some dirt, and I'm sorry, but that's what he did. His spelled in the dirt, put in people's eyes. God knows what Christ was doing, but God knows, and Christ too. We don't. I promise, nobody gonna be doing this technique here. Okay, just laying of hands without touching anybody. Okay. Anyways, I like to bring the idea for us to open our mind to the idea of the passes that up to very recent, we like to say the 1920s, but you're talking about the last century, the beginning of last century. We only knew 3 states of matter. Was either solid, liquid, or a gas. And then later on, plasma was discovered. Thank God we have our plasma TVs. We have the whole 21st technology based on the matter, the discovery of plasma, which is a glowing state of matter. So now we know there's so much more to matter per se than meets the eye too. We know that the atoms actually are not matter per se. We know nowadays that matter is actually energy. Until Einstein, the concept was mechanical physics from Newton. As of Einstein, we have quantum mechanics. You're dealing with energies. We know that in an atom there is 99.9% of energy in one 0.0% of matter. That's what we know. And why am I bringing this up? Because what we do there, what a session of passes is dealing with energy, is affecting your spiritual body, which is pure energy. Is affecting your own physical body, which is actually also made of energy. In a different state, condensed, but atoms in essence are basically energy. So, what are the spiritual energies then? It's just matter more refined. We cannot see. It's intangible. It's imponderable. You can wait. You don't have true instruments to weigh energy, unless you consider these big accelerators nowadays, the CERN and all that truly measure energy. It's pure energy. Spiritual energy is pure energy. Thanks to Einstein, we know that matter actually is the other side of energy. That's what it is. This equation changed the world. We live in the world as we know it nowadays because of that. It's the philosophical part of physics that I absolutely love it. So our entire body is one huge piece of energy, and a big piece of energy field. And in terms of the goals of the passes, you're going to work of a fluid therapy, we like to say, but actually it's energy therapy, also works as a preventive tool to balance the mind and the body. But also, if we are in the other side of lack of balance, it works to restore, to cleanse our spiritual body. So you can prevent. As we attend our lectures here, we all receive the passes here. But if we are not well, we also use the passes actually as a treatment. So it's a healing aid. We will help with all kinds of medical and physical conditions. But we like to say, do never, are you listening to me? Do never stop your medical treatment because you started receiving a spiritual treatment here at the center, or in any center. So, yes, we take a holistic approach, meaning that we take care of the body, the mind, and the spirit. The chakras, like we mentioned, are these portions, if I can say that, these parts of our spiritual body, where there is a more condensed energy. They work as a vortex of energy absorption. And if they are not well balanced, if they are carried by all kinds of pollutants, they will affect our physical body as well. There are different names. Sorry, I took this picture from a Portuguese book. But there are different names of chakras. It doesn't matter now. But the big question is, just to finish, will passes, if I'm sick, will passes heal me? Or at least help me towards the pathway to the healing I expect? So, as we know, the pass is a transfusion of energies that alters the entire energy field. As we know that science teaches that the atom is not in an indivisible component, like we just said. It actually is made of subparticles that are basically energy. We can say that everything originates in nature, in the spirit. If we renew our thoughts, everything within us is modified as well. But this is a process. This is not like a miracle all of a sudden. Can be miracle healings, miracle, quote unquote, sudden healings happen? Yes, but they are very rare. Most of the healing process, mainly with the aid of passes or not, any healing process, are part of a process. I'm turning the words around, but actually, you do not become sick all of a sudden. So you're not going to be healed all of a sudden. It took you years, sometimes lives, to have the illness you have right now. Will take time for you to heal as well. In terms of magnetic healing, the sending and the receiving of this spiritual assistance helps the patient to help himself. His enlightened mind, the patient's enlightened mind, is able to renew the microscopic organisms in his body, and the process of healing begins. The past has a decisive influence in the healing when received with respect and confidence, meaning through faith. If you receive something just for receiving, but you do not absorb what is being given to you, nothing's going to happen, truly. Nothing's going to happen. So we do have a part in the healing process, in the restoration of well-being. As we prepare, sometimes people here arrive late. I understand, we all have a life out there, and it's not easy. Sometimes we arrive here late, and people say, "Oh, can I receive passes?" without listening to this talk here. At the time you sit and listen, you are renewing yourself and preparing yourself to the passes. And I tell you, to receive passes, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but I will say this. To receive passes without listening to the lecture is like getting a bath and putting dirty clothes on top of it. That's the reality. Because if your mind does not renew, which is being renewed as we speak, you receive the passes, all this beautiful, wonderful energy, but your mind is still the same. So it does not absorb what you've been receiving. Passes and medical treatment, I just mentioned to you, do never stop. Your medical treatment is you receive passes. So when the passes are helpful, when you are in need of energy restoration for your general well-being, when are you in need of rebalance, spiritual rebalance, emotional rebalance, mental rebalance, even in cases of illnesses as a complement of medical treatment, and mainly in case of spiritual disturbances. When a person is under the influence, you folks, you had a lecture last week about the influence of the spirits in our lives. And sometimes the influence is not good at all. And you don't know what to do. And you are full of bad energy, and the passes will help to dissipate the energy that you end up attracting of spirits that are not enlightened yet. So to restore our balance in our health will take time, discipline, knowledge, assistance, and above all, my friends, we require us to connect to the real source of health. There is not one single problem that we can possibly go through in life that God does not have the power to interfere. God's arms are very long. No matter where we fell, how deep we fell, God will find us. And the biggest healer ever on earth, that has ever stepped on earth, is Him. So let's connect to Him. Let's ask Him so we can receive what we need. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. Have a wonderful week, and may God bless us the time of the of our pastors today. Thank you.